Hi, and welcome to Meetings in Math. I am so glad you're here today to join us. We are here for section 2.4, rotations. Our essential question is, how can rotations be used to write the coordinates of the image? Today you're going to need a pen or a pencil, your Jaguar Jots, starting out section 2.4. You might also want to bring with you something that you can use for tracing paper. Parchment paper works well, so does tissue paper or patty paper. You also need to make sure that you bring your perseverance and your self-confidence. So before we begin on section 2.4, we want to make sure that we have some of our definitions taken care of, so when we talk about it, you know what I'm talking about. So rotations. A rotation is a transformation that is a turn. So if you talk about like turning a doorknob, that would be a rotation. Anything that you turn, that is a rotation. A figure is rotated about the point called the center of rotation. And as before, the image has the same shape and size of the pre-image, and that is because they are congruent. And when we do rotations, we're going to be talking about moving it an angle or a degree of rotation. So the angle of rotation is the number of degrees the figure rotates. The figure can be rotated either clockwise or counterclockwise. For this, it's really important for you to imagine an analog clock and which way those hands go. When you're talking about clockwise, that is which way the hands are going to go. So clockwise goes around like this, and counterclockwise is the opposite direction. So the other direction. And one way to rotate a figure is to visualize that rotation first. So we can use this by rotating something maybe 10 degrees around the origin clockwise. We could say 20 degrees around the origin clockwise, or we could even pick a point. We could even say that we're going to rotate at 45 degrees around the point 3 to counterclockwise. For us, we're always going to be going around the origin, and we are going to be talking about either 90 or 180 for 8th grade. When you get into high school, you're going to be doing more complex ones, but we just want to get you familiar with the idea of rotation. All right? So this one right here is where we're going to start. The figure below is rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise about the origin. So let's go ahead and identify some of these words. The first thing is 90 degrees. So when we see 90 degrees, we think of that corner, okay? So the corner, just going about 90 degrees. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Clockwise, let's go ahead and underline clockwise. And let's go ahead and put that symbol right there, or excuse me, counterclockwise. Let's go ahead and put that symbol right there so that we know which direction we need to go. Now, let's go back to this 90 degrees. When I think of 90 degrees, I think about clicks. And what do I mean by clicks? It means how many times I'm going to stop when my axes are lined back up. So I'm just taking an old piece of patty paper right here. We reuse our pieces of patty paper just so that we're not being wasteful. And what I'm going to do, before we even do the problem, I want to talk about how can we easily talk about this 90 and this 180 and clockwise and counterclockwise. I'm going to find a blank spot on my paper that I can write on. And it's really important that we pay attention to directions. So I'm going to put an arrow on my positive side and the X at the bottom. So I know that that's my X-axis, and an arrow on my positive side and a Y. So 90, every click or every time that I line back up, that is going to be 90 degrees because 90, right, is a right angle. Okay, so let me get rid of all of this extra stuff so you can see it a little more clear. I'm just cutting this off, okay? Okay, so I'm going to line this back up. I'm going to outline this A for you. So here's rectangle A. And we're going to go clicks. So I call them a click, okay? Just as an easy way for us to keep track of what's happening. So the first click that I go is 90. The second click I go is another 90 degrees. So 90 plus 90 is 180. The third click, or the third time that they line up, well, 90 plus 180 is 270. And the fourth click I go, 270 plus 90 is 360. So I'm going to just hold this there. So the first time that they line up, or the first click, and this is going counterclockwise. See how I'm going around? Let's go ahead and add that to it. So I'm going around this direction. Okay. So the first time I line up, that's the first time that they line up, that's 90 degrees. See how now B lines up with A? It rotated 90 degrees counterclockwise. So that would be 90 degrees, that's one click. Two clicks, or the second time it lines up, 90 plus 90 is 180. See, it would land right there. 90 plus 180 would be 270, so that would be the new image, would be right here, or 3 clicks. And the fourth click, 90 plus 270 would be 360. It lands right back where we started. So that gives you kind of that visual of what we're looking for. Okay, vertices of the pre-image. So remember, the pre-image is the one that we start with. So that's going to be image A. So let's go ahead and give these some names. Let's name it W, X, Y, and Z. So W is the point 1, 1. X is the point 3, 1. Y is the point 3, 4. And Z is the point 1, 4. So now the vertices of the image, that means after I've moved it. So if it started here, now we're going 90 degrees counterclockwise. So that means go around this way. So to the left. Here are my new images. So it's going to be really important we know where they go to. So this is W, X, Y, and Z. So we have to pay attention to where they go to. So let's move it. So this one's W, this one's X, this one's Y, and this one's Z. So did you see how I was using my paper to help me get it back? So the bottom corner was W, so I put W. Top corner, X, go over is Y, and back over is Z. But remember, it's W prime, X prime, Y prime, and Z prime, because it is the image, so they are prime. So W prime, X prime, Y prime, and Z prime. So go ahead and pause the video, go ahead and tell me what those are, and come back and check your work. All right, so W prime is -1, 1. X would be -1, 3. Y prime would be -4, 3. And Z prime is -4, 1. So since everything follows a pattern, we should be able to also algebraically rotate a figure. That means we should be able to write a rule. So when we rotated it counterclockwise, we're going to come down to the second one. Let's look at what happened to our numbers. Our X went to the Y, and our Y went to the X, and it did the opposite. There's kind of a lot to catch there. So let's see if we can get this written down. Our X went to the Y position, and our Y went to the X, but then we also did the opposite. And it did that for every single one. So we can follow that pattern. So remember, counterclockwise means we went around this direction, and clockwise means we went around this direction. So let's write those again, just so we have them in one more place. Okay, if we go clockwise around, our X and Y are going to switch positions again, but our Y is going to stay positive, and we are going to do the opposite of X. So what does that mean to go clockwise 90? Let's go ahead and just use our same image right here, and we'll look at it. Clockwise 90 would have meant to go this way. So do you see now that our X's went from being here at the top to down here at the bottom? That's why they went to negatives. To rotate 180 degrees means to go 2 clicks. So that means 1, 2 clicks. So I end up down here. So that was going counterclockwise. But what if I go 2 clicks clockwise? 1, 2. I end up in the same position. So it doesn't matter if I go clockwise or counterclockwise, I'm going to do the same thing. And when I go rotating 180 degrees, I am going to do the opposite of X and the opposite of Y, but they're not going to switch places. So let's do some practice problems. Again, I'm going to take out my paper. You can do this algebraically, or you could do this with your paper. It's probably best to try it with your paper just because we're learning it. So make sure you set up your axes. That's super important. And then A, B, C, and D. Now let's read the directions. It says 180 about the origin. So how many clicks is that? That's 2 clicks. So let's go ahead and write that right here. And it doesn't matter which direction we go. So let's do 2 clicks. 1, 2. Okay, and then line everything back up. And so D is going to be over 1 down 2. And then C is going to be over 1 down 2. So this was D prime and this was C prime. A, and then B. So we have D prime, we have C prime, we have A prime, and we have B prime. And whenever we are doing this, then we want to make sure that we are using some kind of either ruler or straight edge to connect the dots. I'm just going to use a piece of scratch paper that I folded up. And there's my new image. So the coordinates of this image. So A was the point -5, 3, and A prime is going to be the point 5, -3. I want you to go ahead and pause it and then do the rest of them. So you should have gotten that B was -4, 5, and B prime was then 4, -5, and C was -1, 2, and C prime is 1, -2, and D is -2, 1, and D prime is 2, -1. All right, let's look at the next one. We have 90 degrees counterclockwise about the origin. So the 90 degrees tells us that we are 1 click, and counterclockwise means that we are going to go like this. And I would write those in. Don't try to remember it as you're doing it. Write it down before you start so that you don't have to stop and think about it. Okay, so again, just find a new place on your paper. And let's go ahead and start drawing our pieces in, your X and your Y. And I'm going to speed this up as I'm just laying it out. All right, so now I have it all laid out. Again, this is just old scratch paper, so let's just kind of cover it up. And we're going to go 1 click counterclockwise. So hold it down, 1 click counterclockwise right here. And there's our new shape. So now we need to transfer it over. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of look where it's at. So it's over 3 and 2. And whether you're flipping it back and forth to put it in or you're actually counting them, it doesn't really matter. But you're going to lay down your new points. And then lay this back down and make sure you put them in the right place. So I had them all in the right place. Now I just need to put the right letters on them. And again, I'm keeping this here for reference. See how I just moved it down so I have a reference? And now finish it up. Okay, so now that I have all that in there for you, let's go ahead and pause it, and you guys finish up doing the coordinates and neatening up your paper, and then come back and check your work. So for the coordinates, the original coordinates were L was 2, 4, K was 2, 3, N was 5, 3, and M was 4, 5. The nice thing about knowing the algebraic rules is when you go to check what you have here in the actual drawing, you start to hopefully also use algebraic rules to kind of double check what you were doing. For instance, I knew that for L prime, that the 2 and 4 had to switch places, and that since everything here was positive, that the x's were all going to be negative. So I have negative 4, 2 for L prime, and for K it was negative 3, 2. For N it was negative 3, 5, and for M it was negative 5, 4. So again, because these were all positive, I know that all my x's have to be negative, and I could double check that real fast. And then I also knew that these each were going to switch places. So now we've been working with this, I want you to go ahead and I want you to try the last one on your own and then come back and check your work. So hopefully when you did this, the first thing that you did was when you saw that 90 degrees, you said, okay, you're going to go one click or one rotation. And then when you saw the word clockwise, I'm hoping that you went ahead and you drew the symbol that told you, okay, you're going to go around that direction. Then the next thing that we have to do is we need to draw that in, or we need to make our little picture that's going to help us out, just so that we remember where we start. And this is why it's so important for us to orient ourselves to which way is positive and which way is negative. Because notice, our pictures are not always going to start up here in this nice little first quadrant or in the second quadrant. Sometimes they're going to be down here in the fourth quadrant. So I am going to speed this one up as I do it. So I'm not going to be talking through this whole one. I just want you to check your work and check what you did along with what I'm doing. Okay, I'm going to actually pause right here because you're going to notice that I'm having some problems. My graph got a little bit off, and so I'm going to go back and I'm having to check. And my H and my I's, look, they are looking kind of the same. So I need to do something right here that's going to help me understand which one's H and which one's I. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to change my I into a lowercase I to help me out. And my J, I'm going to put a line over the top. So now I know that this one is H and this one is I. There we go. So here we have H was 1, negative 2, and went to negative 2, negative 1. I was 1, negative 1, and I prime is negative 1, negative 1. J is 5, negative 2, so J prime is negative 2, negative 5. K was 4, negative 4, so K prime is negative 4, negative 4. All right. So that is rotations. Rotations take a lot of time just because there's a lot of things that you have to pay attention to all at the same time. What I'd like you to do is I would like you to take a little bit of time of just rotating, taking your paper and just practice rotating to see what they look like. Thank you so much for joining us. And remember, be kind to one another because we can all use some extra kindness in our lives. Bye for now.